The rain fell softly over the quiet town of Springfield, Texas, as people gathered along the small street near the old church. American flags waved gently in the cold wind. A black motorcycle stood parked near the entrance, polished, shining, and silent. Everyone knew why they were there. Today was the funeral of Staff Sergeant Daniel Carter, a soldier who had served his country for 12 years. He had survived 2 deployments overseas, countless dangerous missions, and years away from his family. But fate had taken him in a way no one expected, not on the battlefield. Not during war. He died in a car accident. Just 2 miles from home. The town was heartbroken. Inside the church, Daniel's wife, Emily, sat quietly in the front row, holding the hand of their 8-year-old son, Noah. The boy stared at the wooden casket, confused and silent. He didn't fully understand death. He only knew his father wasn't coming back. Outside, a group of motorcycle riders slowly arrived one by one. Their engines rumbled like distant thunder. They were members of the Veterans Riders Club, a brotherhood of former soldiers who honored fallen heroes. They wore black leather jackets with patches that read, "Ride for those who can't." The leader of the group, Mike Thompson, removed his helmet and looked toward the church doors. His eyes were red. Daniel had once saved his life during a dangerous mission overseas. Years ago, their convoy had been ambushed. Bullets flew everywhere. Mike had been trapped inside a burning vehicle. Daniel didn't hesitate. He ran straight into the fire and pulled him out. That single moment created a bond stronger than blood. And today, Mike was here to keep a promise. A promise Daniel had made long ago. After the funeral service ended, the church doors slowly opened. The crowd stepped outside, silent and respectful. The American flag covering Daniel's casket was folded carefully by 2 soldiers and handed to Emily. She held it close to her chest, tears rolling down her face. Then Mike walked forward. He saluted the family. "Ma'am," he said gently, his voice shaking. "Daniel once told me something. If anything ever happened to him..." Emily looked up, surprised. Mike took a deep breath. He said he didn't want to be carried to his final resting place in silence. The crowd listened carefully. He wanted one last ride. A whisper moved through the people. Emily wiped her tears and nodded slowly. "Then give him that ride," she said softly. And within minutes, the riders moved into position. More than 30 motorcycles lined up along the street. Engines started one after another. Vroom, vroom, vroom. The deep roar echoed through the town like a powerful heartbeat. People stepped outside their homes. Shop owners paused their work. Children stood quietly beside their parents. Even passing drivers pulled their cars to the side of the road. This wasn't just a procession. It was a tribute. The soldiers carefully placed Daniel's casket into a special black trailer attached behind Mike's motorcycle. Mike climbed onto his bike and looked back at the family. Emily held Noah close. The boy suddenly ran forward. "Wait!" he shouted. Everyone froze. Noah walked up to Mike holding something in his small hand. It was a toy motorcycle, red and plastic, slightly scratched. "My dad gave this to me," Noah said, his voice trembling. "He said one day we'd ride together." Mike swallowed hard, fighting tears. "Can you take this with him?" Noah asked. The entire crowd went silent. Mike gently took the toy and carefully placed it on top of the casket, securing it so it wouldn't fall. "I promise," he said softly. "He won't ride alone." Noah nodded slowly. Then the engines roared louder. The procession began moving down the street. Motorcycles formed 2 long lines behind the casket, their headlights shining brightly in the gray afternoon sky. American flags fluttered from the back of each bike. As they passed through town, people placed their hands over their hearts. Some saluted, others cried. An elderly man wearing a worn military cap stood at attention on the sidewalk. A young girl held a sign that read, "I thank you for your service." The riders continued their journey toward the cemetery on the edge of town. The rain began to fall harder now, tapping against helmets and jackets, but no one slowed down. Not a single rider stopped. Because this was more than a ride, it was a farewell. When they finally reached the cemetery, the motorcycles parked in perfect formation. Engines shut off one by one. Silence returned. Only the sound of rain remained. Mike stepped off his bike and walked to the casket. He gently picked up the small red toy motorcycle and handed it back to Noah. The boy held it tightly. Then Mike stood straight, raised his hand to his forehead, and gave a final salute. Every rider followed. 30 men and women. standing tall in the rain, honoring their fallen brother. At that moment, the clouds slowly parted. A beam of sunlight broke through the gray sky and shined directly onto the casket. Emily looked up and whispered through her tears, "He made it home." And for the first time that day, Noah smiled, because deep in his heart, he knew one thing. His father had taken his last ride, but his courage would ride forever.